So I'm gonna be giving my opinion on the Sixers game against the Celtics, in which they lost 126 to 117 or something like that. Now, my reaction's a bit later because I feel like I let it die down a bit so I can give my objective opinion on what just happened. But before I do that, make sure you like the vid, subscribe to the channel. But yeah, let me jump right into it now. So let me start off with some positives. So James looked very good. I felt like he had that pep to his step. He was beating guys off the dribble. He looked explosive. He looked full of energy on the offensive end. He was hitting his outside shots. He was getting more lift on his shots, hence why he got a lot more 4-point plays, because he was getting more elevation on his shots. And Harden looked nice. Don't get me wrong, Harden looked nice. I felt like Tobias was great. I know people love to hate and blame Tobias for everything that goes wrong in Philly, but I felt like, yes, there were still some times where he took them ugly contested mid-ranges, but that was down to the flow of the offense being terrible and not really him forcing up a shot. He was very good on catch and shoot triggers. He wasn't afraid to pull the shot, especially was it in the third quarter, or no, second quarter, when he was just in the right corner and just pulled up over Grant Williams after giving him a few jab steps. That was a really nice move. And yeah, Toby was solid with his 18 points. But now, one thing I didn't like, and is a semi-positive, is Tyrese Maxey now. He still got 21 points and around 50% from the field and was 2 of 5 from 3. But what I didn't like is that no action was being run for Tyrese at all. He had to call his own number. And I didn't like how you have such a talented scorer on the team, but yet you don't really show any signs to get the ball in his hands, which just doesn't make any sense to me. And just the lack of creativity on offense, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. What you've got a 43% three-point shooter now, someone who can knock down mid-ranges, and I don't see one dribble handoff being ran with Joel. That just makes no sense at all, and I don't understand why Doc is just not utilising Tyrese Maxey in a variety of ways, because realistically, this kid can be used in so many different ways, and Doc's just not doing anything. I'm fed up with this 4-out, 1-in bullshit when I'm seeing Joel with the ball in the low block, and you've got Tucker in the right corner, Tobias in the left corner, then you've got Harden or whoever on the wings. Like, it looks ugly, because all that's happening is that Joel's then getting double teamed, which is leading for him to throw a lackadaisical pass, which is getting turned over, or the ball's just getting swung around the perimeter. And because the Celtics are rotating well, no really good shots come from the possession, and it's just another wasted possession. Another thing I didn't like is the fact that defensively, we look so lost. Like, it felt like Jaylen Brown in the third and fourth quarter had an open mid-range from the left. You see the left wing type area. He had an open three on open mid-range every single time, because off pick and rolls, Embiid kept playing that stupid drop coverage, which led Jaylen Brown to keep having wide open mid-ranges, or that open the three from the wing. Then it felt like every single possession, either Grant Williams or Al Horford were opening one of the corners or wherever, and it was just annoying. Malcolm Brogdon felt like he was almost walking to the rim. Not getting to the rim, walking to the rim. Every time we tried to get the game down to a 9-point game, 8-point game, boom, Malcolm Brogdon gets to the rim, or Jason Tatum has an open three. Like, the defense was ridiculous. And I'm seeing guys say, oh, DeAnthony Melton was brought here. You can't blame DeAnthony Melton, because it was a team issue. And yes, do I feel like Matisse Thybulle should have got some minutes? Yeah, but overall, Matisse wouldn't have really changed the trajectory of the game, because our defensive issues wasn't one-to-one matchups. It was our defensive rotations being woeful, and I semi-blame that on Doc Rivers, so that's not something I really like to see. I feel like Joel was awful. Yes, he may have had 26 and 15, 50% from the field, 1 and 6 from 3, but I felt like the offense was so stagnant around him, and for the way he played, I feel like Joel just didn't feel like establishing himself. He looked very disinterested, and I don't like how you're saying you want to come out and win Defensive Player of the Year, but when you're on the floor, we looked much worse defensively because the drop coverage wasn't good enough. I don't know if that's more of Joel being lazy or Doc's telling him to drop, but as an NBA player, if you see that Jaylen Brown keeps getting to his spot from the mid-range, you should naturally come up and stop playing drop coverage. Also, I felt like Joel was biting a lot on blocks. Yes, he had that nice block on Derek White to start the game off, was it? But there was a possession which pissed me off the most, when Grant Williams barely gave him a pump fake. Joel goes flying in the air, Grant makes the layup and one. Then that kind of makes the game kind of go out of reach a little bit. But I'm a bit all over the place, but I just don't really understand what went wrong, because apart from certain issues, I feel like our offense has potential to flow in certain ways with the way Harden's playing, and I feel like people are complaining about our bench production, but they didn't really have much opportunity, because the main guys off the bench were really Niang, DeAnthony Melton and Montrezl Harrell. Matisse played for like 20 seconds. For the minutes DeAnthony Melton was on the floor, he didn't really get the ball enough to do anything on the offensive end. He wasn't getting any shots, and he kind of had to force up a couple shots. And notably, he did make one wing three from the left wing, I believe, in the third quarter. I can't remember. But you can't say, oh my God, the bench production was terrible. When Doc basically played his playoff rotation, you're not going to have a regular season game where basically 8 guys are playing and Harden and Embiid are playing 40 minutes. Then on top of that, DeAnthony Melton and the others weren't really given looks to kind of capitalize on and really make the bench production meaningful. So I wouldn't really blame the bench in that regard. But what's really telling for me is that people were saying, oh my God, this ISO ball's not going to work. James Harden had a nice night, but I don't want to see D'Antoni offense. If you actually look at the usage stats, James Harden had 21% usage. He was just very efficient with the times he had the ball. Tyrese Maxey, who people said didn't have enough of the ball, which I don't think he did, had 20% of the ball, which means that realistically, Harden and Maxey had the ball a similar amount of times. The issue with me was Joel having 30% of the ball. Now, Joel's a great player, but when it's not going for him, I feel like you need to switch up the offense. Like, if your first line of offense is feed Joel in the post, that's fine. Even though I don't agree with it, that's fine because Joel's a special player. But when you see that isn't working, you should then defer to running more action for James Harden. The Embiid Harden pick and roll was meant to be unstoppable, but hey, we don't even see it anymore. And it's like Maxey's frozen out of the offense, which I just do not like. And another thing I want to touch on is adjustments. Now, I understand that you have your key bench guys that you want to play, but when you see people like Daniel House is giving you nothing, when you see DeAnthony Melton's not really helping you on the offensive end, even though it wasn't really his fault, that's when you bring guys like Matisse Thybulle, because if Daniel House in the 16 minutes is giving you nothing, you might as well bring on Matisse Thybulle, who's going to get you a few deflections, a few steals in those minutes. If you're getting no offense from DeAnthony Melton and no defense, why not bring in Shake Milton, who might have the ability to create something and has pretty much superior ball handling skills to DeAnthony Melton, so he can have the ball more. And Montrezl Harrell, in the minutes he played, I feel like defensively he was trash, even though it wasn't his fault on the offensive end, because his only real opportunity is when James Harden threw that bounce past him. Nice pass from James, and he kind of threw it down. But other than that, Montrezl wasn't really doing much. Why don't you give B-Ball, Paul some run, who can genuinely switch onto guys like Tatum and give them a decently hard job? But I don't know. My biggest concerns are mainly the rotations and the lack of action run on offense, and not really how Joel played, because I know he'll snap out of it. But if Doc's going to keep playing like this and keep just not running any plays on offense, we're going to keep getting beat by good teams. I was really impressed with what I saw from Joe Mazzulla today. I feel like he's a very good NBA head coach, and I feel like the Boston Celtics are set for years, because I don't really feel like Ime is going to get that job back, because Joe Mazzulla, he did a fantastic job last night and just outcoached Doc Rivers by a mile. Doc, this guy is almost half your age and he outcoached you by a mile. It's crazy, but I really got much else to say. I just feel like overall, if we're going to go forward as a team, we really need to start mixing up our offense, because it's so predictable. You can literally sit there on the couch and be like, you know what? James is going to run this ball up the floor. We're going to feed it to Joe on the post, or the option's not getting us. He gets double teamed. He's going to throw it back to James. James is going to try and create from the perimeter, and it's kind of like, oh, James Harden and pray type basketball. Like, what's that? You can't rely on James Harden to bail you out every single night, because realistically, James Harden kept us in this game. It was only a 9-point game because James kept bailing us out with shot after shot after shot. And I just feel like you can't win basketball like that. You've got to have more off-ball movement, and you've got to have different looks to threat the defense, because the Boston Celtics knew what was going to come, and they were set up to trap Embiid every time, which they did. Bro, that's all I got for this video, innit? I know you guys don't really hear me rant about the Sixers that much, which I just don't like doing, because this team pisses me off, but I'm doing it anyway. I don't care how many views it's going to get, because my channel's not really Sixers content related, so if it gets 12 views, I don't care. I just wanted to get my opinion out there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'm out.